All right, it's time for some more Tower of God theories. Let's begin, starting with Mayu in the Discord. My theory is that the red light district might not be the same as the red garbage dump. That would be a bit of a plot twist if this was two completely different things. Right away though, there is actually some evidence for this based on Bellerir's reactions and the way that Bellerir said that he came from the red light district, but then the way that Bellerir then later described the red garbage dump, it was as if he wasn't from the red light district. And the images that the comic uses for both of these places are a little inconsistent. I'm not opposed to this idea, but continuing on, Mayu says, when we got the red garbage dump lore, I immediately thought it was the red light district, of course, but the inconsistencies with Bellerir's story made me wonder if it was like a red herring. No pun intended. So okay, we're on the same page then. I think that's a really interesting idea. Again, the way that Bellerir describes these two things are inconsistent. I assumed SIU just made a mistake or that Bellerir was lying or twisting the story. However, we know that some of it has to be legit because this is Bellerir's internal thoughts, the very first time we learn that he's from the red light district. SIU bamboozling us by making us think red light district means the normal thing that it means, but instead red garbage dump only for it to be revealed not to be the same after all. This would be like plot twist upon plot twist. I like it. Okay, Mayu has a few more points to prove this theory or disprove it. Let's see what we got. First, I want to mention the 3 or 4 people that don't quite fit into the garbage lore drop. Really quick, I just love the term garbage lore drop. Like where the red light district / garbage dump, whatever it ends up being, has made the term is just so funny. I love it. Bellerir, Wangnan, and Karaka, and then the adventurer that Doan and Cha met before being sealed. Bellerir said he came from a place with red lamps, which we took as an implication of him being from the red light district. Wangnan outright stated it. Karaka kind of, yes, Karaka absolutely did at some point. And then the adventurer is just kind of there. Okay, so Mayu's going somewhere with this. What I find especially suspicious about the adventurer is that from the conversations we hear of the champion boss and his revolution people, they don't seem to have been out of their hole ever, which made me think that maybe Gustang and his machinations are the reason they even got a chance to come out after Gustang got hold of the smartwatch and opened the hole, seeing as this watch was described as the garbage dump's key. I kind of forgot that it was described as that, but I like this idea because it kind of adds more weight behind the fact that Gustang is doing all these things, correcting history, going up against Traumerei, and it just so happens that Revolution leaves the red garbage dump. We know Gustang is aware of it and his daughter mentioned it. So I like the idea that there's a reason why it all kind of happened at once. And if the smartwatch is being referenced as the key to the red garbage dump to some degree, and it maybe has some Enryu, Shinsu black hole sphere powers. There's so much lore here, but I actually do think it's connected in a lot of ways, as Mayu is describing here. So then, what the hell was the adventurer doing outside during Genesis? Interesting. Wait a sec. That's true. This would be the earliest quote-unquote Jihad clone in the series. Karaka and Wangnan are described as a bit younger. Wangnan isn't necessarily super young, but he's younger than most of the Ranker characters in the story. And so Genesis is thousands of years ago. We definitely know Karaka wasn't alive during that time. And Bellerir, I would assume not as well, although I guess we don't have confirmation on that. So to have a character from the red garbage dump being a Jihad clone or whatever it ends up being, I never thought of that. Why are they just outside chilling way long ago? This is not that long after Jihad finished his climb. That's fascinating. It's something I never thought about. Either he escaped being sealed like the others, okay, so avoided being dumped in the garbage, if we still assume that the champion boss and adventurer are parts of Jihad, or he was never to be sealed in the first place, which is confusing. Yeah, that would be confusing. I think that either he escaped being sealed, as you mentioned, or he ended up... I don't know. Everything I know is a lie now. I've never considered the fact that this person was around so long ago. Maybe red garbage dump plans weren't fully enacted by this point. this is where the timeline gets super wonky, and the Tower of God timeline, we gotta talk about that at some point because there's like so much that happens during this time. There's like 3 different full-scale wars and all these like clone characters. Is crazy. Mayu then continues, and then there's Wangnan's story. He said that the red light district was destroyed, didn't he? Yeah, he sure did. The way that I interpreted that line after learning about the garbage dump was that perhaps the red garbage dump, there's places within that get destroyed like constantly, because we see these panels later in season 3 of like this red light that is incinerating things. That's how it's described. And so maybe there are places like little organizations or even like cities, towns that are formed in the garbage dump that are then destroyed. This brings me to a point where one thing that I do think goes against this theory is that the very first time we ever see Wangnan is in this like little bonus chapter in between seasons 1 and 2, and Wangnan is laying on a pile of garbage, like in a trash facility or trash outside zone. And I find this to be way too much of a coincidence that the very first time that Wangnan's character is introduced, he's laying on garbage, if in actuality it's all a red herring and Wangnan is from the red light district, which isn't the red garbage dump. I find that to be maybe a little bit too far, but I don't know. I think there's pros and cons to both ideas. I also want to mention that Karaka specifically reacted to the words red light district when Wangnan talked to him. Again, confirming Karaka's connection. The last thing I want to bring up is both a point in favor and against this theory. The seeming weakness some specific people share. Okay, so this is going to go into like the powers of these like cloned people, if that's really what they are. Wangnan has always been characterized as weak but courageous despite being older than the others. Bellerir is, yeah, okay, we don't have to talk about Bellerir too much. He can't fly, as the person points out, yep. And he seems genuinely confused and frustrated that people kept bringing it up. Like he doesn't see it as a natural skill that most people eventually acquire. That's true. In fact, this same flying power is used as a joke earlier in season 3 during the nest when the boss or whoever it ends up being was disguised as a Lopobia troop. And it was like, oh, I can't fly. And I think it was Yorari who was like, you call yourself a ranker? Right? You can't fly? But then Bellerir, you're right, is always kind of taking offense to the fact that like, yeah, I can't fly, so what, right? Yes, I can't fly, big deal. When it's been confirmed that all rankers can fly. I mean, it's seen all the time. Even like one of the weakest rankers ever. A ranker whose only specialty is fighting regulars, which is so funny. I love him, Charlie. Even Charlie can fly in the air with no problem at all. So I agree with this thought that this is definitely like Bellerir's weakness if each of them do have some kind of weakness. Then there's the theory about Champion Boss also not being able to fly, which oh my God, I never thought about that. That's kind of genius. Maybe the champion, the boss, wasn't pretending not to fly. Maybe he really can't fly. Oh my God, my mind is blown. That's a fantastic idea. That way, it kind of connects. I was using it as an example to show that like, haha, he was pretending, but then again, why he was trying to blend in? Like, why would he pretend? Dude, if this is the case, that is genius on SIU's part, because that takes a lot of planning over the years, because that was shown off during the nest, and then this Bellerir plot point was way later on in season 3. That's canon to me. That's such a cool idea. Oh my God, that's so cool. Okay, but Mayu says, I take this as a factor against my theory because it would draw a connection between Bellerir and him, when in this theory, they would be from different origins. Ah, I see. Okay, so if Red Light District and Dump end up being the same thing, which we kind of canonically assume they're the same thing unless it's a red herring, again, no pun intended, then that would mean that everybody from there can't fly, or at least some people there. I guess one point against this theory, there's a lot of layers going on, is the fact that we've seen people from there fly. So at the end, like Ratna Gra and I forget the others' names, Peter Pan looking, I forget the coon who kills Doan apparently, it's BS. There are these people from the Red Light District, or Dump, I should say, that can fly. And even Karaka being one example, It really does depend. I think that if they are the same place, it is fascinating that Bellier can't fly, and then the boss slash champion character also joked, potentially faked, but potentially it being real, not being able to fly also. That's fascinating. I have to think more on that. Then again, maybe it doesn't have to disprove it, seeing as other people from the red garbage dump, I should have just kept reading. This is gonna happen a lot. Like Ratnagra can fly perfectly fine. Could it be then that the red light district is the origin of the Jihadlings, who were later thrown into the garbage dump? I see, so there's like 2 separate areas, but then the ones from the red light district ended up in the garbage dump. But Bellier said he's from the red light district because we see the lanterns. But then Bellier describes it as like the lanterns that people died under. I didn't expect my brain to hurt so much off of one theory. Could the district have been destroyed after serving its purpose? But at this point, I'm just throwing out random theories I've come up with. Long story short, what if they're not the same place after all? Wow, well, thank you very much, Mayu, for that really awesome theory. I definitely think that there is a connection between the two. I always assumed they were the same place. If they're not the exact same place, maybe they're like the red light district is one district in the dump, right? Like maybe there are little sectioned off areas, maybe even based on the Great Family or based on the sort of kind of power that you have or the heritage that you have. It's really fascinating and I love speculating on it. Ultimately, we know so little, even after all those chapters, we know so little about the dump and the red light district that we're just gonna have to wait and see. But what do you guys think? I'm really curious to know. Do you think they're the exact same place? Do you think they're just related? What do you think of like the different kind of aspects of the flying abilities that some of them appear to have, but then some of them maybe don't appear to have? What's going on there? It does remind me too that, you know, someone like Wangnan like should have a lot of power, right? Like Karaka is a very skilled, like youngest slayer ever. Like he's clearly very talented, and Wangnan should have some of that talent if they really do come from the same place and both share Jihad's blood in some way. But Wangnan also has immortality, which Karaka kind of has as well, but through the armor. So I don't know, it's really fascinating to think about. Our next theory is from Checked Titan 542. I'm watching Dr. Bonehead's video about Baam being a vessel for V. Thank you very much for watching, appreciate the support. And the only thing I would like to add is Baam is the son of V and Arlen, but when the outside god brought Baam back to life, because Arlen wished for it, he needed a soul or life force as a sacrifice. Okay, kind of like an eye for an eye, and V stepped up as the sacrifice for his son. Okay, so I have heard this thought before to some degree. So the canonical story that we all were told by Garam was that V unalived himself after his child died, right? Jihad killed Baam, V unalived himself, Arlen went crazy. That was the kind of canonical story. Clearly, we know that that's not the whole story. We even knew back then, for God's sake, Garam made it clear that wasn't the whole story. But now, thinking about V being inside of Baam's body, I do like the idea that maybe there needed to be some kind of trade. Clearly, the gods in Tower of God and in fiction in general, they don't do things for free. You know, never, right? Any mythology with a god, it's never for free. There's always a trade. It's you give, I give. You take, I take, right? And the fact that this outside god was like, ooh, I'll just give Baam a body, it never made sense to me. And I always thought that maybe like Rachel was connected to this, or maybe, you know, the original baby's soul was a different soul. We've made theories and videos on that. But the idea that it could be V is also really cool. Let's keep going. So his son could enjoy climbing the tower for himself and not forget his purpose was revenge because V is always with him. Okay, I was gonna say, because V is definitely, both V and Arlen are both like, Baam, don't forget your freaking purpose. You got a purpose. But the thing is, this current V doesn't really want Baam to do his own. Like, this current V kind of wants to overtake Baam, almost like a parasite is the way that I interpret some of the lines from him, where it's like the body, the vessel. He doesn't even always call him my son, which is kind of creepy. Therefore, V was implanted in Baam, and why everyone has been training Baam in a way that V used to fight, because they share the same soul. Oh, I see, literally the same soul. Okay, so this would go back to the theory that Baam's body was brought back, but with V's soul. Maybe like some combination of the original baby's soul and V's soul, because clearly, I guess, It's a weird thing. Souls are such a big part of Tower of God, going all the way back to like Joaquin and the Floor of Death. However, like we don't really know, like do souls contain memory? Do they contain like your abilities? Like how much of you is your soul? Is it entirely you? How much does your body play a part in memory? It's kind of interesting, but I like the idea that they are the same soul. I mean, we know that V closely resembles Baam. Maybe the fact that Baam was brought back to life with V's soul could explain why they even look so similar, aside from Baam probably having Arlen's eyes. Because Arlen has a way in and out of the tower, which is freaking crazy, by the way. I want to say Yurik said something about her going in and out. Yep, so I don't know about as she pleased, as the theory said. Maybe, I don't know about as she pleased, but she certainly was able to leave the tower. We know that much for sure, which is something that even Gustang couldn't figure out. And it kind of made sense in my mind because V just disappeared one day and no one knows why. We found out where he went. Thanks for reading my theory. Hey, no, you did great. Thank you, Checked Titan, for that. I mean, so we technically know what happened to V is the thing, right? Like he technically killed himself after everything with the baby, but we never bought that, even way back when. So fun fact, when I first started reading Tower of God, those chapters were the latest ones. Those were sort of the ones I caught up to back in, I think 2017 it was. And yeah, I remember even back then, people were like, really? That's what happened to V? Not only because it just seemed a little maybe out of character potentially, or just a bit sort of, it was just suspicious. We didn't know much about V's character, but it was just suspicious. Really? He did this? I don't buy it. It just didn't really fit with all the other things we knew about Jihad and V and Arlen and the baby and all that stuff. So I like the idea. Maybe they share a soul, clearly some kind of connection. And so it would mean that V has been inside of Baam ever since then, throughout the entire series, and that Fug didn't implant Baam with it in between season 1 and 2 like I talked about before, but even during season 1, V has been a part of Baam. I think that's a pretty interesting theory and honestly fairly likely based on what we already know. Our final theory of the day is from Witch-E Lich. Everyone assumes that Enryu arrived in the tower after Arlen left. I don't want to tangent too hard here, but I have brought this point up, that Enryu is considered a ranker, and yet people talk about him as if he just appeared one day and then left one day. But that would mean he's not a ranker, right? Same with Pentaminum. Like if you don't climb the tower, that never made any sense to me, but let's continue. These events necessarily didn't occur in the same order. Enryu killed the 43rd floor administrator, provided Arlen with a place without Jihad and the administrator. Oh, huh. We're saying that Enryu killed the admin before Arlen. Interesting. Of course, you can't just go to the edge of the tower and leave because the administrator, but the 43rd floor has no administrator. You can leave the... Oh, okay. So this theory is basically saying that's how Arlen left, because there was no administrator of the 43rd floor to essentially like guard her, or to not allow people to do so. I don't think this is true. And the main reason I don't think it's true is because we essentially have confirmation that the shrine that was placed there was, it's because it was Arlen's home, and then they put this shrine there in honor or like memory of her. I don't think it could have been that there was a shrine to Arlen that was defiled, then Enryu came for revenge, and then Arlen came to live there. Like the shrine was there because she lived there, is the way that I see it. I don't know though. I'd have to look into this more because there's definitely some very specific wording regarding the story of Enryu and the administrator there, but it's a fascinating thought. I like the idea that, because again, it's such a mystery how Arlen was able to leave the tower, and the idea that maybe the lack of an administrator on a floor, which is a huge deal, no one to watch over the Shinsu and everything else, perhaps that's how. Now, of course, you have to throw in like Hell Joe and all the souls being trapped there, but that's kind of a separate thing. So I'm not sure. Fun theory. I don't think it's true because I think the timeline would be a little wonky, but maybe if you look at some passages and try to kind of combine them, maybe it makes some amount of sense. It's a fun idea for sure. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed, stay tuned for more Tower of God content. I want to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters, especially the rankers. Thank you so much to Mr. Nexo, Olaf Lind, Smap the Slayer Anime, and Soran Quasagrok. You rankers are what keep this channel alive. So thank you very much, and thank you for watching once again. I'll see you in the next one. Peace!